Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Hey, it is our issue unit, and it's day 2. So you know we've already started talking about this and have explained a little bit about what a fertility rate is and what a baby boom is as opposed to a baby bust. Currently in Taiwan, we're experiencing a baby bust, meaning we are not having enough people willing to have babies. And so now we're into this negative population growth, which is not good for the country because those senior citizens need people to take care of them. So we're going to talk about what we can do, what the government's done. Of course, the government always gets involved and they screw things up. So first they wanted to encourage people. We had too many kids and now they want us to have fewer kids. And as I said to Tom, maybe they should just stay out of it and see what happens.
Yeah, let things run their natural course. That might be the best solution. But I'm just thinking to look on the bright side here. Eventually, all those old people are going to die out, okay? So eventually, this will no longer be a problem, and there'll just be not very many young people and not very many old people eventually, maybe in 50 years or something like that. But for now, we've got this problem, and we've got to deal with it. So let's continue talking about from baby boom to baby bust, Taiwan's dilemma with fertility. Let's read the entire contents of our lesson for today right now. Currently, Taiwan's TFR is among the lowest in the world. The introduction of family planning and government campaigns are only 2 of many factors that have contributed to Taiwan's low birth rates. Another social change that has had a major impact is the progress of women's rights. As more opportunities for higher education have opened up to women, more are choosing to pursue careers outside the home and compete with men in the workplace. Their shifting goals and priorities have caused many women to delay or reject marriage and thus not have children with partners. Even for young people who desire children, financial insecurity caused by low wages and the prohibited cost of childcare make it difficult to start a family. The lack of new babies is already having some visible effects on Taiwanese society. With a surplus of schools across the island and not enough students to fill them, over 500 schools have already closed due to too many vacancies. In the near future, the cost of caring for an aged population will mean heavier financial burdens on taxpayers. To boost the birth rate, the government has implemented more state-funded nurseries and subsidies for parents of newborn children. Whatever plans they've put in place, though, don't seem to be enough. Taiwan's fertility problem is a complicated issue. We can point to many reasons why it's happening, and there is no single quick-fix solution to be seen. But one thing is for certain, in order to cope with Taiwan's changing population, both government and citizens need to not only contemplate long-term meaningful solutions that remove obstacles for young people, but also look beyond the dependency on raised birth rates.
Okay, so in our first sentence here, guys, we have an acronym, TFR. Do you remember from day 1 what that stands for? If you don't, I can remind you, it's total fertility rate, So we've got one of the lowest in the world here in Taiwan. We probably are, I'm going to guess we're a little higher than Japan, though. The Japanese always are in the news for having a low birth rate. So it sounds like we're following their example. We don't want that, though, because it causes so many problems. So the introduction of family planning and government campaigns are only 2 of the many factors or things that have contributed to Taiwan's low birth rates. Yeah, so there are other reasons. This isn't a simple issue. It's either this or that. There are actually a lot of different reasons why this is taking place. So Another social change that has had a major impact is the progress of women's rights. So if we go back in time to the 1950s, many of the women were staying at home and raising their children. So if you have a mother at home raising kids, it's also a lot easier to have more children. If you have a mom who is going to work every day and you don't have grandparents or that elderly generation to look after your kids, you're going to have to pay for childcare. And that can be quite expensive. It also is not the best solution. I'll tell you, I said this earlier in the program. I would hate for someone that isn't family to look after my kids. But I know a lot of people out there don't have another choice. They have to work in order to make the rent payment or buy your living, your cost of living things like food and your electricity and things like that. So, but let's focus first on this progress of women's rights. In the 50s, not a lot of women were going on to get advanced degrees like medical degrees and becoming lawyers and even getting PhDs. But that changed over time. And then more and more women were then able to pursue some pretty important careers outside the home. Now, if you pursue something, you chase after it. You want it. You can pursue happiness. You can pursue a new career. You can pursue a guy or a girl that you think is really attractive. But they were choosing to pursue careers outside the home and compete with men in the workplace rather than stay at home and raise children.
Right, staying at home and raising children is a noble pursuit, but still there are lots of interesting possibilities beyond that or outside of that.
I want to speak up for the moms out there. That's the hardest job there is. So if you're a mom at home and raising your children, good for you. That's a tough, tough gig.
Yeah, we have all the respect for mothers out there, indeed, but that's probably one of the reasons why women don't want to do that. It's too much work, so hey, I think I'd rather work in the office from 9 to 5 every day and work overtime and stuff like that. That is more fulfilling than being at home with a bunch of screaming kids and a husband who expects a meal when he gets home from work and stuff like that. You know the old stereotypes. But yes, indeed, more and more women are choosing to pursue careers outside the home, and they're going to compete with men in the workplace for positions and for promotions and raises in salary and stuff like that. Now, their shifting goals and priorities have caused many women to delay or reject marriage and thus not have children with partners. I remember a long time ago you often heard this. Women wanted to pursue a career for a while, and then they were going to take a few years off or whatever and have children and then maybe come back and work later on. But nowadays, yeah, they might still be thinking about that, but they also may be thinking about not having children at all. I never want to have children. So indeed, we're having fewer and fewer children because of these changes.
And also, if you delay having your children, it's not as easy to have kids as you get older for women. So that's one reason why the birth rate is down for sure. I think some people think that, well, when I want to have a kid, I'll have a kid. But it's not always that easy as you get older. So there are a lot of reasons for all of the problems that we have socially. So even for young people, the young generation, say they're in their 20s, who desire children, financial insecurity caused by low wages and the prohibitive cost of childcare make it difficult to start a family. So here's some other reasons. Financial insecurity. Financial just has to do with the money that you need in your life. So financial insecurity would probably be things like not having a stable job. Maybe you're still pursuing your academic career, or you still have to graduate from college or even an advanced, get your advanced degree if that's your goal. It could be. So financial insecurity. It's not just low wages. Can I put out there that the cost of buying a home or buying your own apartment here in Taiwan is crazy expensive. it's disproportionate to the cost of living in Taiwan. It's so much higher than you would ever expect because the cost of living in Taiwan, in Taipei at least, is actually pretty affordable compared to other big cities. I've moved here from New York City. The cost of living in New York kind of matched the cost of buying an apartment. But here, just trying to buy your own home is really, really expensive.
That's why you have to rent or live with your parents and things like that. So yes, we've got these financial concerns. And of course, because it is so expensive to buy an apartment or a house, we have financial insecurity.
Yeah.
People just are not sure about where their money is coming from. And that's caused by low wages and the prohibitive cost of children, or the prohibited cost of childcare. All those things make it difficult to start a family. So yeah, if you want to keep your career, you might want to send your child to a nursery or a kindergarten or something like that. But those things are not cheap. So we're saying that has a prohibitive cost. Prohibitive means it can prohibit something. In other words, it's so expensive that you'll probably decide not to do it.
Yeah, so if you see that word prohibitive, which is an adjective, just means it's so high that you really don't have a choice. You know, it's so high that it stops you from doing something. So, yeah, all of these are really good reasons why we're seeing a lower birth rate. And it's understandable, of course. Well, right now, guys, we're going to take a few minutes, take a break, and listen to our Chinese teacher. And then when we come back, we'll start in on the second paragraph. So stay tuned.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家看了台湾有一个很严重的问题，就是生育率过低了。那么今天呢，要来探讨一下到底是什么原因啊？为什么大家都不生小孩呢？好，我们来赶快看今天的文章。第一段的第二句有一个关系子句哦，先行词是 only two of the many factors。关系子句从 that 一直到句尾的地方，不过当然还会有其他的原因了。这另外一个原因就是一种社会改革 social change。在第三句接着看 another social change， 这里也要划线，因为后面带了一个关系子句，从 that 一直到 impact 的地方。先行词是另外一种社会的变革，这种社会变革对于社会有很大的影响哦。什么呢？is the progress， 就是女权的进步。那么女权进步是什么意思啊？因为女生有很多的高等教育的机会，而且有更多的女性选择在家庭之外追求事业，在职场上跟男性竞争，所以这是所谓女权这个进步的这个状态。而所谓的职场就出现在这一句最后一个字 workplace，所以这样子的话呢，变成女生，我们会觉得我们的目标并不是就是要结婚生小孩，我们最重要的事情也不是要生小孩，而是我们要有自己的人生实现啦，要有工作啦。接下来第五句看到的主词是 shifting goals priorities， 我们对于一些优先的事项啦跟目标的变化，就会导致很多女生干脆就 delay延迟结婚，或干脆就不生了，拒绝婚姻。好啦，那有人不想结婚，可是有人就是喜欢家庭嘛，他们也有困难。所以我们又点出了最后一句，在第一段第六句的地方，看到底现在年轻人如果真的是渴望子女的话，到底有什么困难呢？这句话还是有两个关系子句，第一个出现在逗点之前，先行词是 young people， 关系子句从 who 到逗点的地方。对于那些渴望小孩的年轻人来说 financial insecurity， 这种所谓钱上面的不安全感，到底是什么原因造成的呢？逗点之后出现了一个简化的关系子句，关系子句从 cost 到右边的 wages， 省略的是 that is， 因为低薪资还有呢过高的育儿费用，产生这种所谓的 financial insecurity， 财务的这种不安全感，都会对渴望子女的年轻人来说很难建立家庭。不过最后这句话当中，我们要特别注意一下 make it difficult， it 是虚受词，真受词从 to 一直到句尾的地方 to start a family。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We shall now continue with our lesson for today. Again, we're talking about Taiwan's recent baby bust. I'm sure you've heard about this in the news. It is a big problem. Taiwan's TFR is among the lowest in the world, and the government has tried to implement various policies, but sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And some of the reasons why people are having fewer children include the progress of women's rights. Also, we're also talking about the cost of having children. It can be prohibitive to afford childcare and to afford a place to live if you get married and have children. So these are some of the reasons why the birth rate has declined here in Taiwan. Now let's move on to the second paragraph. It says, the lack of new babies is already having some visible effects on Taiwanese society. Okay, so yeah, you may notice that if you go out shopping, there seem to be fewer babies crying around and stuff like that. You have lots of couples, but they may be, instead of pushing a stroller with a baby in it, they're pushing a stroller with a dog in it or something like that, which I think is really silly and disgusting. But in any case, yeah, the number of babies is going down, and this is changing society.
Oh, for you dog owners out there that were just really offended by Tom, he's just kidding. It is funny, though, to see the little poodles being pushed around.
Poodles.
In those, in the strollers. It makes me laugh, too. So we've got a surplus of schools across the island. If you have a surplus of anything, it's just extra of that particular thing. Maybe you've already met the demand or the requirements and you have extra left over. So you have a surplus of schools. Even in the 15 years since I've come back to Taiwan, I've noticed that there just aren't as many kids around, and I know some of my friends who teach English here in Taiwan, they've also said the same thing. The jobs just aren't as plentiful as they were before because there aren't enough kids. So they've actually had to close down some schools. It says here, over 500 schools have already closed due to the many vacancies. Yeah, if you have vacancies somewhere, it just means you have too many openings. For example, if you're ever out, maybe you're on the road in America and it's getting late and you don't have a hotel reservation, but you pass by a small motel on the side of the road. It'll have a big sign that's lit up and it'll either say no vacancies or vacancies. So if you see vacancies, it means they have rooms that are still available. No vacancies means they're full. They have no room for you. But some of these schools had to close down because they just had too many rooms and teachers for the number of kids that were in that particular district or neighborhood.
Yep, so we've got a surplus of schools and there are lots of vacancies. So in the near future, the cost of caring for an aged population will mean heavier financial burdens on taxpayers. So the few children that we have are going to be saddled with high tax rates. They're going to have to be working long hours and they'll have a lot of money taken out of their salaries in taxes in order to help support an aging population, especially with the national health insurance, which requires, lots of money to pay doctors and nurses and for facilities and scans and medications and stuff like that. That stuff isn't cheap and the money has to come from somewhere. So yeah, the tax rates are probably going to go up. But of course, they'll still be spending money on the military and things like that too. So my goodness, people are going to be taxed like crazy in the future.
It's something to consider, that's for sure. I wanted to mention we've got this adjective here, aged population. It's also pronounced aged. So sometimes you'll hear people say aged just in case. But aged population, yeah. Heavier tax burden. Nobody wants to pay taxes, that's for sure. So to boost the birth rate or to have it increase or go up, the government's implemented more state-funded nurseries and subsidies for parents of newborn children. Now, if you implement something, you just put it into action. It's starting to work somewhere. And we've got state-funded nursery. State here doesn't mean like a state in the United States. It just means something the government is controlling. So they've got government nurseries. A nursery is a place where little children are taken care of, and it's typically for kids under the age of kindergartners. So sometimes you've got little babies, less than 6 months old, and usually it goes up to 3 or 4 years old. By the time they're 5, typically their parents will enroll them in kindergarten. But so the government's trying to have some of these nurseries open to help parents with the cost of childcare, and also subsidies. Subsidies, what are those, Tom?
Money that the government gives you to help you out with something. They have to give subsidies to mass transit systems, for example, in big cities. Those lose money. They cannot possibly pay for themselves through the fares. So they have to have subsidies from the government, assistance from the government. So maybe the government will help the parents out with some money. And whatever plans they've put in place, though, don't seem to be enough. So yeah, it doesn't matter what they're doing. 无论如何, whatever plans they put in place, it's just not working. The people of Taiwan just don't want to have kids like they did in the past. Now, here's the final paragraph here. It says, Taiwan's fertility problem is a complicated issue. Okay, issue here is just a concern, something that people are thinking about, and something that is discussed on TV programs, on the radio, on the internet, and of course there are lots of different opinions that people have.
When you see this word issue, it typically means a problem. Usually people don't talk about their issues without it meaning something that's a little bit negative or something that they need to resolve or figure out or come to some conclusion on. So, yeah, it's a complicated issue. We can point to many reasons why it's happening. We already have, right? But there's no single quick fix solution to be seen. A quick fix, you'll see this term put in front of some sort of noun to talk about some way to just get a problem behind us so we don't have to think about it anymore. Typically, quick fixes don't last very long, though. So it's something that you do for the short term, but is not going to help in the long term. So there is no one quick fix solution to be seen. But one thing is for certain, in order to cope with Taiwan's changing population, both government and citizens need to not only contemplate long-term, meaningful solutions that remove obstacles, but also look beyond dependency. Let's take a look first at this. If you contemplate, it means you think deeply about something. It's not something that you just, pops into your mind. You actually are really thinking deeply about something if you contemplate. And again, notice here, they're using long-term, and we just mentioned there's no single short-term or quick fix solution. So they're going to be trying to remove obstacles. Some of the obstacles for young people would be the cost of childcare, the cost of homes. Even rent is going up in some places. It's getting quite expensive. But to buy your place, I wish they could help some way with that. But they're also going to look beyond the dependency on raised birth rates. Maybe they'll never be able to raise the birth rate, so they're looking for other solutions that don't have anything to do with how many kids people have. Tom, what does dependency mean?
Dependency, it means you're dependent on something, that you need that thing. So we could also say that we need to look beyond depending on raised birth rates. Dependency here, however, makes it a noun. So we don't want to have dependency on those high birth rates. We need to possibly think of other solutions and accept the fact that perhaps the birth rate is simply not going to go up. And that couples, although they'll get together and they'll have an intimate relationship, they still won't want to have children, and they'll actually prefer having that poodle in their stroller as they go down the street. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
好，所以新生儿的缺乏对于台湾社会已经有一些非常明显的 visible effects， 已经有很多影响啦。比如说没有人，没有学生，学校就过剩啦，那学生又不够啦，所以有超过500间的学校因为空缺就关闭了。我们在第二段的第二句当中看到一个 with， 这里的介系词呢，表示的是一个因为过剩的学校，中间有一个粗体字 surplus。A surplus of something 就表示什么什么东西太多。好，所以除了学校关闭之外呢，接下来老人人口越来越多，所以在不久的将来照料老人的费用，也就是说纳税的人就要有更沉重的经济负担，因为老人的费用，也就是这个人口比较高龄的人口比较多。我们在第3句看到 aged population， 也就是老年人的费用呢，就会让我们有更多的经济负担。所以为了要提高出生率啊，政府就为了新生儿的父母实施了很多，比如说公幼啊，这个公共的托儿所嘛，还有很多的其他的育婴补贴之类的。那我们在第4句当中有看到所谓的公幼公共托儿所 nursery 前面有一个 state funded， state 有国家政府的意思，Fund F-U-N-D 有动词给予资金之意，所以在这里是一个 PP， 由政府来给予资金，也就是公立的托儿所 State Funded。 不过在这句话当中，最后面第4句特别注意一下， whatever plans 指的是 no matter what plans， 无论有任何的计划，无论是什么样的计划，注意后面有带一个关系词简化的关系子句 they 一直到逗点的 place， 不管制定什么计划似乎还是不够诶。所以其实这生育率是一个非常复杂的问题，我们当然可以说它有很多原因，而且重点是没有一个 quick fix solution， 也没有一个应急之道。所以我们可能不管是政府啦，或者是我们大家我们公民，可能要想一想到底要怎么样来解决这个问题。在第3段当中最后一句这边我们特别注意一下，有一个关系子句，先行词是 long-term meaningful solutions， 而关系子句从 that 一直到逗点 people 这个地方，所以我们大家可以想想看，要怎么样让台湾的出生率提高哦，这是一个很重要的 issue。 以上是我们今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And get busy there, couples. Start having some children and help us all out. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.